You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. So welcome back again to the CreepGeeks Podcast. This is our Weird Wednesday episode, and this episode is episode number 125.
Weird Wednesday, Brown Mountain Lights, Part 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Load it.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
So welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. Again, this is episode number 125. This is our Weird Wednesday podcast. And for those of you who may be wondering, what is our Weird Wednesday podcast?
It's where we break down an unusual topic or subject or anything trending in the news that's a weird phenomenon.
Yeah. And so what's this CreepGeeks Podcast all about?
Well, broadcasting paranormal news and fun stories from our CreepGeeks Bunker Studio in the mountains of western North Carolina. We're an offbeat news podcast that takes a lighthearted approach to the strange, the stupid, paranormal, and tech topics circulating the web.
Very nice. So if it's your very first time listening to the podcast, very much appreciated. And if today is your birthday, happy birthday. And then if you're a long-time listener to the podcast and it's your birthday, well, happy birthday for you too. Anyway, so it begins again. This is our Weird Wednesday episode. We typically do 2 episodes a week with our podcast. A Weird Wednesday, where we actually talk about something where we've gone out and done a little bit of investigation, if you will. And then our regular podcast episode is where we haven't done that, where we actually have gone and checked out things where it's just things that we find to be interesting, and hopefully you do too. We try to take a lighthearted look at the paranormal and UFOs and all that stuff, all things 4T-ing, if you will, because why not? Yeah. So you can also support the show by calling in if you want and sharing a little instance, a story, an experience, or something like that you may have experienced or something that you'd like to talk about. We have a phone number.
That phone number is 575-208-4025.
That's right. You can call and leave us a message. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's tell you how you can support the show, because evidently you have to do that these days. So basically, you can support the CreepGeeks Podcast with little to no effort on your part. Won't cost you anything at all, and basically it goes like this. When you shop on Amazon.com and you use our affiliate link, we'll get a small percentage. It doesn't change your price, and it'll help us to keep the coffee flowing and gas in our Albino Rhino, our DIY camper van. Yeah. So it kind of helps us foot the bill for that sort of thing, and it really doesn't cost anything. And that affiliate link is
Amazon.com/shop/cheapgeek.
Yes, and if you're on the internets looking at this and following along in our show notes that we do publish on our website, CreepGeeks.com, you can just click that link and buy whatever you want.
Actually, doesn't the link appear like when they're listening on their mobile? And
I think
click
so.
Through? Yeah, or tap through,
so.
I should say.
Usually when we're listening mobile, like most everybody else, we're driving down the road going somewhere, and it'll pop up or be listed on the phone. And I can't be clicking on stuff when we're driving. I have a hard enough time driving as it is. But yeah, I do think it does. I think it actually pops up in the mobile app. And if you're wondering where you can listen to the podcast, if this is your very first time, we have a plethora of places. We have iTunes and Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud,
Google Play and Google
Play
Podcasts.
Yes. Radio.com. Basically, anywhere you can pick up the podcast, you can listen to us. Hopefully, pretty soon we'll be on Pandora, which would be super cool.
Yeah.
Because what we've noticed is, it may be a trend, but we hope not. Our podcast is growing, and it's due to people like you listening to people like us, talking about things that we find to be interesting, basically.
And if you'd like to help us grow, be sure to give us a rating on whatever platform you listen to us through. So if you listen to us on iTunes or Google Play Podcasts, just go ahead, hit the rate button or review button, give us a couple of stars, or give us your honest feedback.
Yeah, and by honest feedback, we mean 3 to 5 star quality reviews.
When you review a podcast, it actually helps them because your review makes the podcast more visible, which allows them to reach more listeners.
Yes, it helps people to grow. So, yeah. Okay, so anyway, we decided to go out and do a sort of preliminary research, exploration sort of thing, if you will, about the Brown Mountain Lights that happened in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why part of this podcast is titled High Strangeness in Linville Gorge, North Carolina, the Brown Mountain Lights. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, it is unusual. I mean, I think I'd only heard of them like one other time.
Yeah.
And now that we moved out here, it's definitely something I've wanted to check out and I've wanted to see myself.
Yeah.
So we've talked to a couple of people, and the phenomenon, I can't say that today.
Phenomena.
Ranges from people who see them often to people who have lived here their entire lives and have never seen them.
Yeah.
So
it seems like it's more likely than not that people have seen them. And according to a couple different things that we've read so far, I have never seen them. I've been coming out of this area for over 40 years because we have family in this particular region. And now we're broadcasting from our bunker studio somewhere hidden deep in western North Carolina. And we've gone out. And I think that one of the things that we want to do is to actually see the Brown Mountain Lights. It's an inexpensive adventure, right? It's free. If you can get up there to a place to view these lights,
yeah,
you can see them for free. And there's people who's been up there 30, 40, 50 times, never seen them. There's people who's been there one time and have seen them. There's people that say you can see them during a certain time of the year, and other people say you're going to see them if you're going to see them. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the idea behind the Brown Mountain Lights and some of the sort of interesting random factoids about the Brown Mountain Lights. And then we have an interview that we recorded live.
Yeah.
At Linville Gorge, Wise Men's View. And we're going to play that, and then we'll pretty much wrap up the podcast, because our Weird Wednesday podcasts aren't typically as long as our normal podcast, but this is setting the stage for us to do probably pretty much going to want to be in an ongoing investigation at Linville Gorge, so we can hopefully see the Brown Mountain Lights for ourselves, which will include video and audio and all that good stuff. So
yeah.
We may get lucky. We may go out one other time and see him and go, oh, there you go. But I don't think so. So it seems like it's luck of the draw with this kind of thing, but maybe not. So as we do with all of our podcasts, we'd like to start off with an interesting random factoid.
Yep.
And what is this interesting random factoid?
So, with the exception of besides the Brown Mountain Lights, which are supposedly or allegedly a natural phenomenon.
Allegedly.
Did you know there are other weird light phenomena in North Carolina?
No.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So I thought this region was very special because, this is a very localized thing that happens here. However, it turns out North Carolina has other weird lights, and they're called ghost lights.
Ah.
It's a generalization given to any weird light phenomena. I cannot say that word today.
Phenomena.
That doesn't have a concrete explanation.
Okay.
So that's the explanation for a ghost light per Wikipedia. And they call them atmospheric ghost lights or other lights that appear without an obvious cause. Brown Mountain Lights is the top one that everyone knows about. However, there's things like the Mako light, which was occasionally seen between the late 19th century and 1977 in North Carolina. And then there's also the dismal swamp lights, which happen...
I have heard about those.
Yeah, happen anywhere from Suffolk, Virginia, all the way down deep into North Carolina.
Yeah, with the dismal swamp lights, I kind of think that it's probably more methane gas related.
Yeah.
Because it also creates what they call swamp fire.
Yeah.
So that one I thought was pretty interesting, but that may be more of a more likely explanation for that one. The Mako light has a little bit of a tale behind it.
Well, the thing I wanted to bring up about the dismal swamp lights are the folklore behind them.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the Brown Mountain Lights. as in the dismal swamp lights. The contributing folklore suggests that it's lights of slaves who have either passed away or some marginalized group of people who fled to an area and are seeking out others. So that's just an interesting correlation there that I found.
I do think, if I remember correctly, that part of the Underground Railroad went through the Dismal Swamp.
Yes, and Harriet Beecher Stowe's second book that she wrote, because we all know she wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah.
Her second book was called Dead, the Dismal Swamp, and it talked about the slaves who had run away into the Dismal Swamp regions.
Wow.
To flee, basically, all the bad stuff.
That's not necessarily a good place to flee.
Yeah.
That swamp's full of water moccasins and all sorts of kill-you-dead stuff, but I guess it's probably better than the alternative.
And that was part of the point was, people like George Washington and people from the Civil War tried to colonize the area and develop it out, but nobody was successsul, which made it the perfect place for people to run to.
Yeah. So going back to the Mako light,
yeah,
with the tale associated with this, and this is again according to Wikipedia, so take this with a grain of salt or whatever. It's associated with this guy named Joe Baldwin, who was a train conductor, who is said to have been decapitated in a collision between a runaway passenger car and a locomotive at Mako. And this is around Wilmington and along the Wilmington and Manchester Railroad in the 1800s.
Ew. Sorry.
Yeah. So the most common version of the legend, Joe Baldwin was the sole occupant of the rear car, which is kind of weird, but I guess if he's the conductor, it would make sense. And it was traveling down in the rear car of a Wilmington-bound train on a rainy night in 1867. As the train neared Mako, he realized that the car became detached from the rest of the train, and he knew that another train was following. So he ran to the rear platform, was frantically waving a lantern to signal the oncoming train. And the engineer failed to see the stranded car in time, and then Baldwin was decapitated in the collision.
Oh.
Yeah. And there's some variants to the story that they say, of course, his head was never found.
Dun, dun, dun. Sorry.
Yeah. So, shortly after the incident, residents of Mako and railroad employees began reported sightings of white light along that section of railroad track through the swamps of the West Mako station. And word spread that Joe Baldwin had returned in search for his missing head. The light was said to appear in the distance before the approaching along the tracks to the east. It'd be a bobbing height of about 5 feet, so you see it about 5 feet off the ground, right? Mm-hmm. And either flying to the side of the track in an arc or receding from the viewer. Ooh. And other reports spoke about red and green lights and other patterns of movement with these. And this is around the 1870s, right?
Yeah.
So, interesting.
Didn't, one of those TV shows in the late 2000s, they did a story about a train ghost light in like Ohio or something.
See, that's just it. Along with the common sort of folklores that you have with like La Llorona, which is the white lady.
Yeah.
There's also the railway sort of tales where, because we've heard this a couple different times from a couple of different places where somebody's lost their head or their life and they're out there trying to signal you to stop.
Yeah. But I think the Ohio one, they couldn't explain it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this one, I don't know if it's been seen.
Yeah.
Or when the last time it's been seen. Because what we see here from Wikipedia is between the 19th century and 1977. So who knows? But I thought that was kind of weird. So those lights are pretty interesting, but I don't think that they have the same.
And also near a swamp.
Dun, dun, dun.
So,
maybe it's a, floating ball of methane, as the British say. Methane, which is weird. It's like methane.
But I just thought it was really...
say Ethernet.
Oh,
I think if you say Ethernet, you should be arrested. It's Ethernet. Because you don't say ethereal, you say ethereal.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. So if you're ever hanging around the old Creep Geeks and we're out there investigating together, because we do that, we go out and investigate ghost stuff and cryptid stuff. It's a thing that we've been doing since we've made some wonderful contacts with M&D Paranormal and Cryptid Research and Asheville Cryptid Guy and all that stuff in the Asheville Cryptid Society, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're around us and you say ethereal or Ethernet, I'm calling the cops. I'm just saying.
Hello, police.
Police.
I'm being attacked.
Yes.
By bad language.
I'm being triggered. So here's the deal with the Brown Mountain Lights, right? Mm-hmm. For those of you who may be interested, our interview that we're going to play you shortly has been recorded in the form of a video.
No.
In a video you can see on our YouTube channel. Now, we have 2 YouTube channels. We have to be a little bit clear with this. We have the CreepGeeks YouTube channel, where most of our videos go. And then for Weird Wednesday, we post those videos on our Cheap Geek channel.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, it's completely self-serving. We want more people to see that video and those videos associated with Weird Wednesday. So we use our Cheap Geek channel, because the Cheap Geek channel has 28,000 subscribers. It's got, over 11 million views.
It's got a wider reach.
Yes. Excuse me. A much wider reach. And also that ties into our Cheap Geek Facebook group, which has, about 60,000 followers. So
yeah,
we really wanted to kind of get these videos out there and just to kind of do a barometer. So it is completely self-serving, but it's okay. It doesn't cost anything to watch, and you'll feel better about yourself when you do. So.
Well, I think that actually, it would help because they'd learn something new that they may not know about North Carolina.
I mean, especially if you're interested in that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so check out our Cheap Geek channel. We do have a link in the show notes. It'll take you right there. And you'll also find it on Facebook. And, of course, we will share it to our Creep Geeks Facebook group and Creep Geeks Facebook page as well. If you're wondering what they're called, they're actually called the Creep Geeks Facebook group and the Creep Geeks podcast page, right? Mm-hmm. So there you go. So, excuse me, like all things Wikipedia, there's an entry about the Brown Mountain Lights, which is relatively good.
It's good. I just do want to note it's been trimmed, because I've had this page bookmarked since
well, that's what we've noticed.
November.
It gets trimmed every time somebody thinks they see a Brown Mountain Light or has made a reference to it somewhere.
Or somebody writes a new book.
Yeah, or somebody writes a new book. We've seen that. That seems to be a growing trend.
Yeah.
If you follow a subject on Wikipedia, for example, and somebody's going to put a book out, they'll start editing that subject in Wikipedia before the book comes out. We noticed that with our last podcast where we talked about.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not for that. Not for this. So anyway, so the Brown Mountain Lights are a series of ghost lights, like Omi was saying, reported near Brown Mountain in North Carolina. They can be seen from the Blue Ridge Parkway at milepost 310, which is called the Brown Mountain Light Overlook, which is a new thing that was added just so tourists could go see it.
Oh.
Yes. And 301, which is the Green Mountain Overlook. Right?
Yeah.
And this is from the Brown Mountain Overlook on North Carolina Highway 181 between Morganton, North Carolina, and Linville, North Carolina.
2 locations or 3 locations?
Technically, there's 3, but this talks about the 2. You can see where the lights can be seen from milepost 310 with the overlook there, and milepost 301, which is called the Green Mountain Overlook.
Okay.
Which is the way that we were going to go, and we will hit all 3 of these overlooks, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, where we went was where the locals want to go, and this is relatively close to Little Switzerland and all that, and it's in Linville, North Carolina.
Oh, and Wikipedia calls it one of the best vantage points.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's Wiseman's View, where we were. Mm-hmm. So we went to Wiseman's View, and we went there to sort of do a little reconnaissance, if you will, to see what would be a better vantage point to go. And we actually were joined by Daniel from M&D, who's seen these things a couple different times.
Yeah.
And we figured, why not go out there and get an idea of where we're going to be, how we can sort of set up to maybe possibly capture these lights, and where to, just to get more information, to get what he's seen, how he's seen it, where he's seen it from, and what his thoughts were. And plus it was a good excuse to go.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing overlook to go see, and we were overlooking the Linville Gorge from Wiseman's View, which I will say is a dirt road to get there, and then you almost need on the verge of a all-wheel drive type car to get up there. If you have a really low clearance car, you wouldn't want to take it up there, but we've seen regular cars up there.
Yeah.
And I will say that the Albino Rhino, no problem.
It was a little scary.
Well, it's a little bumpy, but nothing that we haven't experienced in the Great Southwest.
Plus, it was the first time your traction control really kicked in.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. So we know that works. Well,
it caught me off guard.
With the Albino Rhino, we've only had it for a year. We've got about 9,000 miles on it. We took it off-road a couple different times, but this was one that was uphill, full of dirt and sand and ruts. And it did just fine. You could hear the traction control firing off the left tire and rim, driving it, and then the right side and back and forth. I'm like, wow, this actually works pretty well. But enough about that. let's get back to the Brown Mountain Lights. So what we're going to do is take a second and we're going to go ahead and play our interview. They were recorded live on the scene, if you will, at Linville at Wiseman's Gorge. And then we'll be right back. We're here at Wiseman's View.
Yeah.
Linville, North Carolina.
In Linville, yes, North Carolina.
So.
You can't see the view, but trust us, it's there. And it's amazing.
It's beautiful. So.
No, I'm just messing around. All right, so basically what it boils down to is just we're going to talk about, Brown Mountain Lights. We came out here to sort of scope it out, sort of see what's up, see what kind of trek it is to get out here, sort of a how do you say it? Reconnaissance type mission.
Yeah.
Or you could just say recon.
Yeah, but I don't want to be all cool like use the jargon because you can't remember the whole word. You know what I mean? So anyway, here's the deal. We're here at Wiseman's View, right? Mm-hmm. And this is in Linville, North Carolina. It's an amazing view. I'll show you in just a second. But we're here with Daniel. And Daniel's M&D Cryptid and what is it?
M&D Paranormal
and Cryptid Research, LLC.
Thank you, Omi.
Thank you.
And Omi from CreepGeeks, and Greg from CreepGeeks, and Paranormal Pepper from Doesn't Give a Crap, is ready to go for whatever reason, which is kind of weird with her. She usually is all into the sort of thing she wants to leave.
She's very focused into the brush right here.
Yes, which usually means that eventually we need to leave. But anyway, we kind of thought we'd sort of talk about his experience that he's had with the Brown Mountain Lights. And we're going to basically, one of our things is to come out here more frequently so that we can see them and experience them for ourselves. So, there you go. That's the premise behind why we're here.
Well, I mean, to start off, it's like I read all these accounts of Brown Mountain Lights.
You need to...
I know, but I was going to look at Daniel, because Daniel's experiences are a little... So, yeah. God, when did the accounts start? Like the 1800s or 1900s?
They've been around forever.
Yeah.
But they were, okay. So around the 1900s or so, the reports started coming in and started making the newspaper, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then in 1930-something, there was an investigation. So realistically, in the 1900s to now, has been way more reported sightings than anything before. It's supposed to be local legend, folklore about, with the natives, especially Cherokee, talking about, looking for lost tribe members and lost family members and all that sort of thing. Don't necessarily believe that to be true.
Yeah.
But there was supposed to be more activity happening when they were putting the railroad through.
Oh, okay.
So, and then in the 30s, people reported also with the more and more instances of the lights, and it was originally written off as being possibility of being car lights and all sorts of crazy stuff, but it doesn't work. But those explanations don't work.
The railroad stopped, and then I believe when they were doing the study, there were no cars on that road.
Yeah, because there was no way to be down there, and we'll show you in just a second what we're talking about, but there's no way to really be down there to where you could actually have car lights being seen, and it's not a train coming around a mountain, and all that sort of thing. He's actually seen them, and from what he describes, none of those explanations work.
Yeah.
So, there you go. If you want to, tell
us.
Well,
I've seen them 3 separate occasions.
He's just showing off now.
I was lucky.
Yeah.
They're all over in the valley. They're just everywhere in the valley. I've seen them come out of the valley, go over the mountaintops. They travel like your kind of stereotypical UFO does, except they're in the valley, and they look like they're somewhere between substantial and ethereal. The most exciting experience I had one move in front of me almost within arm's reach. It's about the size of a basketball, perfectly round sphere of light, opaque. It's about as close as that bird just now was.
Yeah.
It was opaque, no noise, no odd feel, nothing, just this
no
ball
static,
of light.
No energy.
Nothing.
And how you said within arm's reach?
It was a little bit further out. I would say maybe
couldn't see in it at all.
6 feet away from me. You could almost see through it.
So, but it had.
Because I've heard of spherical like probes, if you will. There's really no better description than it. Or kind of match that description, but inside will be like a square, or there'll be something in there.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering.
No.
What I saw, and I was taken aback, honestly, when I saw it. I was just completely amazed. Had I had a camera with me, I wouldn't have had the forethought to take a picture.
Yeah.
So I was amazed.
Yeah.
But it was self-luminescent.
And if you would have, it would have been really blurry.
Yeah.
Because all cryptids, Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, Jersey Devil, all of them,
An unexplained phenomenon.
unexplained phenomenon, they're all blurry.
Yes.
That's why you can't see them clearly. They're physically blurry in real life. So you can take the best camera in the world, and that's what you actually capture.
The speed in which they vibrate.
Yep.
It's kind of like the Flash.
Yeah.
Or Superman's face.
Technically, we would call it an oscillation. They oscillate at a
Yes.
different frequency that makes them blurry.
But
Kind of like when Flash does a whole...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
were you here or were you someplace else when you saw it?
I was actually on the overlook next door.
Okay.
The actual Wiseman's View part. Right now we're at a different little outcropping.
Yeah.
But I was actually over there all 3 times. I saw them over there. And like I say, they were everywhere. They weren't there. There was no designated path they were taking, like car headlights or somebody walking or anything like that. And the one continual thing that I've had happen every time I've been here, regardless of whether I actually saw the lights or not,
Yeah.
is down in the valley along the riverside on this overlook over here. At a certain point, there's always a light blue light. And at
It's like a
first,
pale blue.
yes, it's almost like when like when you're in a landfill and they're burning the gas off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost that kind of color, except lighter.
So like a lighter sort of methane style
Yes, exactly.
flame.
And it's been every time. And I've been out here at times there wouldn't be anybody camping down there, and that is rough. I'm sure you'll show some video of the valley for those that hadn't seen it, but that's rough terrain down there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would take some doing to get in there.
So there's no parkway that goes through that park, no road really, no driveway.
Not
would
that
get
I
down
am
into that
aware
valley.
of.
Okay.
Especially to bring equipment that would create a flame so big that he could see it.
Or a light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to the whole conspiracy theory about the military bases.
Yeah, there's
Around
supposed
here.
to be deep underground military bases or DUMBs in this area. And there's also supposed to be reported UFO in this area. This kind of area goes from like Linville, Spruce Pine, Burnsville, all the way through into parts of Tennessee in this area. And I understand why. And most of it, unless you're on a road, it's hard you can't see down in any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So many trees. Whereas to counter that in New Mexico, there would be no trees and all rocks. So if there was something there, you could see it unless it was camouflage, which is relatively easy to do.
Yeah.
And plus, just being so hot and inhospitable, most places you'd never know anything's there either because you're not going to be there because it's, unless you're a lizard,
Exactly.
you got no
Because-
business being out there.
As far as not knowing where things are, I mean, we're on this outcrop, which isn't Wiseman's actual view, but we've just discovered what looks like little cave-type entrances over this way and weird crevices. We have no idea where those are, like if they're animal places or something like that. It's
This is a
unusual.
place in general where you can have something in the woods 10 feet from you and you
Yeah.
wouldn't see it. You'd
Yeah.
probably hear it maybe or feel it, which may be why Pepper's still ready to go.
Yeah, she's so ready.
And the times that I saw the light, my first thought was, well, it's a campfire, but why is it blue? And you watch it, and it don't act like a campfire.
No variations in color or light. It's
No.
just sort of the same
Yeah.
blue.
You can't even really see it flicker. And the times that I have been here, I mean, up until, a couple years ago, I didn't have any real equipment to take video or even see anything really well. So I didn't have
Right.
any of that back then. I was just coming up as a spectator. But there was no change or anything like that. And I will say that one time we were up here, I've been up here multiple times. One time that we were here, I did see what appeared to be a flashlight around that light. But it came and went, just like somebody kind of popping up and going, okay,
Like
and
trying
gone.
to figure out what's
Yeah.
going on.
And it
Okay.
could have been another phenomenon of the lights themselves. I don't know. That's a long way down, and I didn't have anything to look that far.
Do you think the light maybe looked like something that if it just was just glowing in the dark and happened to be visible? Because when I've seen video on the internet of that little blue light, because a lot of people see it and they point it out, to me it has the same color as bioluminescence blue that I've seen in the ocean. Because there's a couple, you'd be surprised how many different colors of bioluminescence you'll see. You'll see the standard green, which is what they actually use to make those Kalyum breaksticks. There's actually a form of bioluminescence in there. And you've got orange and red, yellow, and then blue. Blue is always the ones that are relatively unusual to see, but they're kind of the neatest to see. You ever seen one of those blue breaksticks where they're kind of like a pale blue, kind of white, but more
I've not
bluish?
seen a blue. I've seen the amber-like colors.
They do have them. That's kind of what from the video, from what I've seen, that's what it looked like to me. Which would mean that whatever is there is glowing instead of actually,
I'll say this.
like a passive glow.
Whatever I see is not small.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty big if you can see it from here.
Yeah. So I don't know. I honestly don't know, but it's interesting, and it's a phenomenon that's happened every time I've been here.
And then, so if it happens like every time you've been here, and you've seen YouTube videos on it, and people are able to notice it, does that mean it's like constant? I mean, like,
it might be on right now.
If it's a flame, like an open.
My thought with the deep underground military bases, growing up on a military installation, being, growing up in Navy housing, because my dad was in the Navy, they had lights that would stay on all the time.
Yeah.
And they were attached to different things. You had like a fire box light that was red, it was on all the time. You just had sort of military style stuff. And there was a blue one where the glass itself looked really dark blue, almost like the airplane runway lights blue, the glass itself almost a purple.
Yeah.
And some of those, if I remember correctly, were used to let you know that there was natural gas and electricity, and they would stay lit, so that as you were going by making your rounds, doing watch or whatever on the military base, you could see that everything was fine by the fact that the light was on. If the light was off, then there was a problem, or the bulb was dead. So, and they looked kind of like aircraft runway lights. They had to screw on with the cage around it, and that's kind of what it reminded me of, was like seeing that, and just it had that sort of glow about it. It didn't really flicker, didn't do anything, but I don't know.
You're talking about the glow. That actually makes more sense, because the more I think about it, it didn't actually project any light around it. It was just here.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anything around it lighting up.
And that's the thing, when you look at something that actually has a glow about it versus like a direct light, you only get the light that is emanating, from within itself, and it may only have like a really short sort of throw distance, whereas a flashlight's directed beam.
Right.
So it may just be something that's on all the time that you can't see during the day, but at night, if you're looking in the right spot, you can see it. If you got a clear view down into the valley.
So as far as that blue light source is concerned, it's possibly some sort of fuel source or light source that's stationary, and everybody can see it.
Or to me, it's an indicator light that you can't see until it's
But then,
nighttime.
As far as the actual lights are concerned, like I've read the descriptions in the books.
Like, what if it's somebody's porch light? What if somebody has like, a system set up to run water from the river somewhere up to their place, their house or whatever, and they're using that water. Yeah. And when the light's on, it's fine. It means the water's working fine. And then when it's off, the water is off, so that you could check and, okay, I got to go down there and check it out.
But then the actual lights.
Like maybe you're doing that because you're trying to keep your weed garden alive.
Oh, gosh.
Or your still or something like that.
But it'd more likely be a still out here.
I don't know, man. Weed's a thing, for sure. Especially being towards Tennessee.
The lights, the Brown Mountain lights, the ones that everybody talks about, the floating ones, like you said. Is it floating like a glow bug, or is it like a deliberate path, like flying? Are they lazily coming up?
What I saw was a deliberate path. It wasn't like you're kind of lazy,
floating around
like this. It was.
Okay, so basically it had intent behind movement. It wasn't just floating around like a bubble.
Right.
Or like a balloon or something called on the wind kind of thing. Or even like a blimp where it has to be directed. So it had movement, it had purpose, it could change directions and stuff.
Yeah. And it would change. It wasn't like it would turn like this. It was like that. Kind of like your stereotypical UFO. But the one that came so close to me, it wasn't completely solid. I mean, you could tell there was like, for lack of a better way of saying it, there was a mass there, but it wasn't completely solid.
Like maybe a fireball?
Like see-through like a jellyfish?
Or see-through like a jellyfish?
Kind kind of more like a jellyfish, but not that see-through. Like it was, I mean, it was pretty.
So it wasn't clear, but it was opaque.
Yeah.
And you could almost see through.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird too.
Weird.
And it moved with intent. It didn't just float around like it was wafted on the breeze. None of them have. And like I said, I've seen them go above the mountain peaks.
Yeah.
Like completely out of the valley.
Huh.
And I've seen them,
Because
they'll move around out over here.
The one video that I felt may have been genuine Brown Mountain Lights, it basically, and it's funny because I'm wondering if the video was taken from here or over there, and it just raises straight up between two peaks and then just disappears. But it raises straight up and that's it. And the other videos, I can't really tell what's going on.
I don't think that there's a set behavior pattern.
Okay.
Everybody that I've talked to has had different experiences. And somebody yelling hello.
Yeah.
And before anybody asked, no, I have not been down there. That's rough hiking, and I'm not doing it alone. I've not had anybody to do it with me.
Yeah.
I want to go down there.
Okay.
But that is that's probably a weekend trip. You're looking at camping and traveling and.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to know how to get there.
Yes.
I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, we can get there if you're looking from on high.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, you'd have to mark it in a way to be able to find it, a GPS or something to mark it on a map. And then you got to figure out how to actually get there.
but like we're looking on high and we found an interesting cave over there and we have no idea how to get to it. So, and like, are these lights coming out of these caves? Which is one of the many other theories.
I mean, I don't know if it's, you know, like with the glow, it almost seems like the sun charges it up and then it glows. Maybe it's a rock. Maybe it's some kind of rock that actually glows blue. I'm sure there's probably some out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or maybe there's something on top of the rock that glows blue, like maybe a moss or a lichen or something like that we just don't know, because there's a lot of weird sort of shit in this whole area. You know.
Then again, somebody might have. I mean, there's serious hikers and woods people out here that I'm sure have been down there. Somebody might be down there and, like, you know, painted a marker.
Yeah.
With some glow in the dark paint.
Oh yeah.
Because we had those in the military. They were on our ship. And you could get different colors, but the primary color we used was the glow in the dark orange, because they were basically markers, and you could get the paint, and then you could buy the paint now. But I mean, all like on Amazon, there's all sorts of glow in the dark stuff that you could get. And if that would make sense if somebody had painted like maybe a big square with a directional arrow or something like that.
Like the airmail in the Southwest, the big giant airmail arrows that the pilots would look down and
Yeah,
be
to
like,
make sure that they were flying the
I'm
correct
on my
route.
way to Arizona through New Mexico. And those
And
things,
it could be a navigation. I mean, who knows? We don't know. We don't know what kind of power's on it. It could also be some kind of marker for flying over, maybe a radar marker.
Well, and
maybe that's painted. Or maybe that radar marker that's down there that's marking something, if it is a radar or microwave marker or a beacon, if you will, that beacon will be lit all the time unless there's a problem.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say too.
What if it's a military beacon?
We know that military comes through here. It hadn't been just a couple of days ago. I watched a video. Somebody was here.
Yeah.
And filmed a fighter jet come right through this. I mean, down in the valley, come through the valley and go on. So it could be a military marker.
And I've seen some of those videos too, where they were really freaked out. Why are black helicopters flying through the valleys? It's called training, folks. The military does it all the time. We used to have jets that would drop down and be about 15 feet above the ocean and go whipping past us as fast as they could, because it's all about the training.
Well, and there's also...
they do have National Guard here, and there is military presence that's pretty heavy on the East Coast. I wouldn't be too surprised to see that. I'd be more surprised to see them in clusters of 2 or 3 doing different things in different spots and sort of hanging around instead of transiting through the area.
Well, there's also pop copters. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Because, you know, pop puts off a pretty significant heat signature.
Yes.
So,
what if that's it? What if it's just some pot farmer that's been in operation for like 20, 30 years? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I think that the marker, though, I think is a relatively new thing, because I've seen it in most every video. Most people can see it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The ones that I've seen, the ones that are more worth watching. But the lights, though, and the hard part about the lights, and some of the photographs I've seen, they're not, you know, it could be anything, right? And they're not definitive enough to say, it's a ball of light or whatever, which would make sense because if it's a ball of light that's glowing from within, you're doing some kind of transit on its own, but it really doesn't have a direct light. It's more indirect or diffused within itself. It's going to be a blurry thing, and no matter what you do, unless you had an amazing lens that was really fast and you had some light behind it, you'll never capture the entire thing. It'll always look like a blurry dot moving around.
And that's also the biggest issue with what we do in the paranormal world. And I say paranormal as
All-inclusive?
An umbrella term.
All 14?
Yeah.
14,
And,
yeah.
the equipment we use, no matter how good the equipment we have is, no matter how much you spend on it, it's still flawed. The only true way you can say, yeah, that's something is by personal experience or gut instinct, and you can't document that.
Or capturing one.
Yeah.
I mean, like capturing Bigfoot.
Right.
But how would you capture a Brown Mountain light?
Exactly.
And with the Brown Mountain Lights, I kind of rule out a lot of the whole, it's possible military thing with possible drones, like ancient drone technology or whatever.
That wasn't a drone.
Yeah.
It couldn't be, because it's been going on since the 30s. And I think even in the 30s, before our supposed technological intervention from the aliens, if you will, if you kind of subscribe to that sort of thing, we didn't have the technology then. So, and they were seen then. And they've been seen ever since, off and on, different times of the year with seasonal changes and things like that. So I don't necessarily think it's a military thing.
So do you come back here just to see the lights, or is it...
I have two reasons for coming here.
Okay.
One, I want to see the lights, and I plan on coming back with an excursion with some equipment, some night vision cameras, things like that, to see, because I've not done that. I know other people have. I have not done that, and the only evidence that you can really trust is your own, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a sad fact of what we do. Mm-hmm. I want to trust other people's stuff, but you can't. I want to, and not to mention, I want that experience. I want to be able to say, yeah, I got this, and you can believe it or not, but this is what I got.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I come back for that. I want to come back and do some investigation, but holy crap, look at it. It's gorgeous.
True.
That is my biggest reason for being here. I love it. I love these mountains. Being out in this forest, that's my church.
Yeah.
That's why I like to go out Bigfoot hunting. If I ever caught definitive proof of Bigfoot, I wouldn't share it. I'd keep it to myself. But I want to be out here.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason I wouldn't share that proof, is because there's idiots. If I shared that proof, then I'd want to ruin all of that up there, because there's going to be thousands of people out there trying to do exactly what I did. There's going to be people out here trying to kill him. There's going to be, a whole list of things. So no.
So that kind of goes on to the whole, what if you figured out the Brown Mountain Lights?
Well, the lights would be a little bit different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there very reasonably could be a viable explanation.
Yeah.
It may not be a paranormal thing, but it may be a paranormal thing. And there's enough people already come here to try and see them that it really wouldn't change anything if they knew the definitive proof. It actually might slack it off because it takes the mystery out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I was to come out here and capture one in a jar and say, well, it's just an extinct type of firefly that only lives here.
Huh.
Well, then some people are going to go, holy crap, I got to go see that. And others are like, well, there goes the interest in that.
So do you think the reason that, even though there's been scientific studies, like a couple different ones, and we have some video evidence, the reason it's still something people talk about is because they want to see it for themselves?
Yeah, and there's two things in the paranormal world. People want the experience. People don't necessarily want the proof. They want the experience, they want the mystery. And then there's people that are genuinely curious. Those are going to be your genuine researchers, that aren't out here just trying to make money off of it or, whatever. They're not going to make it like a...
They just want the truth.
Exactly. But the majority of people, and for me it's kind of a mixture of all the above. For most people it's the mystery of something. A cryptid like Bigfoot it's going to be a little bit different because it's a tangible thing, and people are people, right?
Yeah.
And say, I go out here and get definitive proof that this house is haunted. And this apparition appears, every other Tuesday at 9 a.m., right? Well, there's going to be a lot of people come because they want to experience that, almost like going to a zoo and seeing a caged animal, right?
Yeah.
And then other people are going to go, okay, well, let's go find something different.
That's kind of why we do what we do. We like to talk about everything because it's all pretty interesting, and we have an interest in it. And, from like going out and doing cryptid investigations and the paranormal stuff that we're starting to do, with you and Asheville Cryptid Society, M&D Paranormal. So we kind of like doing it, and we want to be a part of it. And I kind of think with us, if it got to the point where we had definitive proof of anything like Bigfoot, I don't know if we would share it either, to be honest.
Well, especially
because,
to me,
I could see if you could trust people, but that's the problem. You can't.
And see, Bigfoot is close to a people. That would be like, exposing a pepper to the world.
It's like, wow, you found, a North American gorilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
But
I don't know, man. It's just kind of a weird thing because I don't know.
With this, though, I kind of want, I would want to know the explanation.
I don't necessarily think it's paranormal per se. I think it kind of points towards being some kind of natural phenomenon that we can't really explain yet. But, I don't know,
We've not touched on the interdimensional theory.
Well, I was going to save that for next time. Yeah. Because if you use the interdimensional theory, then that can be an explanation for anything cryptid, anything unusual. The reason why I use Thunderbirds, for example, like in our podcast, the reason why you see multiple different types of Thunderbirds is, I think when you see the Petrosaur or the pterodactyl style Thunderbird, known as the rock with the lizard neck and all that stuff, the skin for wings, if you look at interdimensional portals or gateways or little spots where it's been worn thin, that would make sense. You see that, it's flying around, it flies back through the other side and just goes away, it's gone. Same thing with Bigfoot. And then when you look at something like the Thunderbird just being a large bird that looks like a big bird with straight wings, that kind of thing, I can think that I would think that would be more of a natural thing. And I think that there is a higher likelihood of the possibility of that being more of a legit cryptid than anything else out there. I mean, that and the giant snakes, not necessarily ones with antlers or wings or anything like that, but they find anacondas that are like 20 feet long and are, big around as a trash can a lot. So they do exist.
I think the biggest one on record is 28 feet?
Yeah, it was almost 30 feet, and it was like, seriously, it's big around as a trash
massive.
can.
I mean, that head,
and it was eating people.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to eat that. And, so I think you could see that sort of thing being more realistic.
Oh, no, it's starting over again.
Well, let's film some of the valley.
Okay.
Over there.
Coming back down here Sunday, going to the haunted forest with the guy.
Ooh, nice.
The goal of M&D Paranormal is to compassionately, knowledgeably, and professionally support and offer paranormal services to those who have been affected by a paranormal experience, including those who have been indirectly affected. Services provided include paranormal investigation, property research, and evidence review of residential, business, and private property locations. Cleansing of these properties are available upon request. No matter the circumstances of the paranormal experience, M&D Paranormal strive to offer a non-judgmental environment to promote education, open communication, and empathy to each individual that chooses to share their experience or come into our service. In achieving this goal, M&D Paranormal is building and bringing together a community of open and like-minded individuals by offering free monthly gatherings and events at the Shop Eclectic, 49 State Street, Marion, North Carolina. Call us anytime at 828-484-1637 or 828-559-2818 or email us at mndparanormal.
And we're back.
Yep.
So it begins again. So, if you look at the Brown Mountain Lights on Wikipedia, there's been a couple instances in like modern pop culture where it's been referenced, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorites, actually I have two. The first one was called, it's an episode, 1999, called The Field Trip, right?
Yeah.
It was on the X-Files. And it centered around a mysterious case of missing hikers that were found dead in the vicinity of the Brown Mountain Lights, the Brown Mountains in North Carolina. And the show mentions the Brown Mountain Lights.
Yeah.
And Fox Mulder believed it was UFOs.
I don't remember that episode.
I've seen it. If it's where I think it is, they keep running into like a portal type thing where you get stuck in this magnetic field. It was pretty crazy if it's the one I think it is.
I want to see that one.
Yeah.
We need to find it and download it.
Yes. So it was called Field Trip, and it was on the X-Files, 1999, if you're interested in that. And this story, which I thought was just the craziest one out there, and I figured I would kind of go ahead and share it.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about some of the other things that it may or may not be. Okay. So the mystery of the lights hits its peak when Ralph Lale claimed they led him to a mummified alien.
Oh.
Yeah, and this is an article written by Greg Newkirk, who did, along with Dana Newkirk, Hellier.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that, it's good. It's a good show to watch. You should watch it. It's on YouTube's. So, in this article, right, it's called Ralph Lale and the Alien Mummy, the Missing Extraterrestrial Artifact in the Brown Mountain Lights. And it says that this guy, Ralph Lale, came face to face with one of the alleged lights and followed it to a crystal cave.
Oh.
Okay, so he seen the light and it followed him to a cave.
Yeah.
Or he followed it to a cave, I should say. It's crystal, which is kind of unusual, right? And it said the light addressed Lale in a booming voice and told him the secret of humanity and that the planet Pewam, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, probably not, probably doesn't matter, P-E-W-A-M, right? Planet Pewam, but warned him to never reveal the location of the cave, and that they rewarded his silence with a trip to Venus, where he was examined by the local aliens and even copulated with one of the native lady, alien women's. Right? Whammons, as PewDiePie would say, right? So basically, since he kept the secret, they took him on a trip to Venus, all expenses paid, I'm sure. He was examined by the local aliens and got to get lucky with a native alien.
You're just tripping over that alien lady.
Yeah, native alien lady. Native whammons. So when he returned to Earth, he was given a mummified alien, which went missing after his death and only exists in blurry photos.
Oh.
And as we talked about this in our last podcast, I don't think the photos were blurry. I think the alien is blurry, right? All cryptids are all blurry, right? Anyway, the detailed hoax. That's true, though. The detailed hoax can be chalked up to nothing more than a plea for attention, but has nonetheless created a cultural phenomenon, and many now believe that the lights are UFOs or aliens visiting the Earth. That's not because of this story. There's been lots of UFO reported sightings, and all in this particular area. So, what was that? I think it's our dog. It's our dog. It's our dog. And we're back. Hello?
Yes.
Is everybody here now?
Yeah, we're all here.
All right. So before we had a little bit of a noise happening, and for those of you who don't know, or do know, it kind of depends, I guess, how long you've been listening to the podcast, we have a little dog named Pepper. Pepper is our watchdog. She likes to make sure that things like the wind and the mailman and things like that aren't able to come in and attack us. And this time we were attacked by my brother.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
That's Will. And so we figure we can kind of continue from there since he's been here and living in North Carolina a lot longer than I have. So we're talking about the Brown Mountain Lights. What have you heard about the Brown Mountain Lights?
Well, the Brown Mountain Lights, I've heard several things. Mostly it's that people think maybe it's plasma floating around down there, or it's the Indians that are trying to light fires to bring their people home. All kinds of weird stuff.
Like lost tribe members?
Yeah, lost tribes, people, and I don't know what the actual scientific thing people think about it is, but the plasma was the most recent thing I saw on Discovery a little while back, and I had old Joshua P. Warren on it.
Yeah.
And he was talking all kinds of weird stuff, and he was also talking about the plasma, and but the pictures and stuff Just recently found out that there's only 3 daytime photo or nighttime photos of the actual lights.
They're like early evening.
Yeah.
And they're like all done by the same guy.
Oh, okay.
And they're the 3 clearest. There's some video evidence, but the video evidence you can find on YouTube. Like you Google or you go on YouTube and type Brown Mountain Lights. There's all this like night footage, but it's from security cameras.
Yeah, it's not good stuff when you try to watch it. It just looks like little bitty lights floating down the valley.
Yeah, which is probably what they are. Because the theory that we have is, and we talked about it in our interview, is that if it is a light, and if it's a light that's not outwardly directing the light, in other words, it's coming from internal, like a glow, you'll never see it clear with the camera. It's a glow. And that's the problem with the lights is that, you know, people out there, and there's been a couple of pictures, probably with the guy you're talking about. We had a really big zoom lens, had the top dollar equipment, and you still get the blur, and you still get, you know, a real lack of defined detail as to what these things are. And that's going to happen when you have a glow. And the distance, it's a tremendous distance. I don't think people realize how far away.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like the documentary that Will was watching, we've watched that too.
Yeah.
And it's a couple years old. It's a few years old. And even back then, that dude had the top of the line camera gear.
Yeah.
And a tripod. Good on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's out there getting set up, and he'd been doing it for years and years, and he wound up catching like 3 or 4 pictures, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the idea of it being plasma or piezoelectric effect because of the quartz and all that stuff in the area, I mean, that's possible. And it does kind of look like it's more natural than man-made or
supernatural.
Like yeah, so it's kind of hard to say what it actually is. You know, there's even been the theories that, you know, it's possible it's giant fireflies.
Which, it's funny that you say that
Yeah.
because, like, I'm starting to get those, you know how you think your phone is listening to you and then suddenly something appears on your phone? On my Facebook just now, I was getting feeds about the firefly shows in North Carolina, like the Smoky Mountains fireflies, where you go to some of the national parks and wilderness areas to watch the fireflies go off.
Yeah.
Like apparently it's a really big deal because some of them will actually all go off at the same time.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's kind of expensive per ticket, so I'll just take their word for it.
I don't think it's light refractions or refractions. I don't think it's headlights. I don't think it's ball lightning necessarily. And I don't think it's a giant, because if you were a firefly putting off that much light, you would have to be huge.
And you'd also have to be green.
Yeah, yeah. Or some other bioluminescent color, right? You'd have to be either green or red or yellow or even blue.
We'd have to
which
find
are the
them
colors
by
of
now.
the lights, but you know, why would you only see them certain times of the year? You know, I don't understand. You think, because some people say that the best time to see them is in late fall, like September all the way in through November. I don't know of any fireflies that are still hanging around by then.
No.
No, me neither.
So, and then there's also some reports that, you know, like when you have rain or fog or something like that, you know, you may see them after that. Like if the fog lifts, you'll see the entire valley all lit up with lights, which is just kind of weird. But I don't know. And that's the thing. You know, nobody really knows what they are. I don't think it's some kind of an alien thing. I don't think it's a drone or a probe. You know.
So if you don't think it's all those things, and I'm going to ask Will the same question, what do you think it is?
That's the thing. I don't know until I see it. You know, Will and I were both in the Navy. We seen bioluminescence in the water.
Yeah.
And you know, you can't see what's making it, and it's super bright.
Oh yeah.
We've seen other weird stuff too. But
Super beautifully lit.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's backlit. It's not a directed light. It's a light it's a glow.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm wondering, you know, kind of, I need to be able to see it. I mean, it may be possible. Maybe it is, you know, some kind of natural thing that has its own bioluminescence that's super bright. And again, it could be, it's kind of hard to say because, you know, there's a couple different lights, right? You get the lights that move around and will do different things. And then there's also, like, there in certain spots, there's that glow where you can look down the valley and you can, or in the gorge, and you can actually see that sort of blue glow.
Yeah.
And, you know, that, it may be two different things.
And when we interviewed Daniel, he talked about that one as well.
And a lot of people see it. Like, they'll go up there and they'll see it all the time.
Oh,
I've seen it there.
I've seen that glow one on those YouTube videos that we've been talking about.
Like,
that's the one
there.
that's like it goes like it pulses or something, you know?
And so it's like, do you have to have that glow in order to be able to see the lights if the lights are even there?
Right. And it's also like the light is like the old school light bulbs, like amber kind of.
Yeah.
Like yellowy light for the most part. That's the ones I've seen.
Like more incandescent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like the nice bright ones that we have nowadays.
Yeah.
So like an old miner's light to go with the folklore?
That would go with the
Or
folklore one.
like an old lantern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who knows? And with crystal being the way it is, if it's under pressure, it can illuminate, and it does oscillate in frequencies and all that sort of thing, but it still doesn't explain the ones that go flying around.
Right. So ball lightning, they're trying to get to say that it's mostly ball lightning. That's the new hip thing now.
Yeah.
But we've actually seen ball lightning, and it's sudden, it's super fast, and it's kind of
bright, and it doesn't hang around necessarily. I mean, it flies and does this thing and eventually goes out.
Right.
Whereas some people have reported with the Brown Mountain Lights that these things, seem to have a mind of their own. They're not all just kind of floating around on the breeze. They're coming around and they're making turns and they're doing all this crazy stuff. So my real theory, if you go back to the little people and fairies, is that it's Tinkerbells. I mean, think about that. I mean, wouldn't that would make sense if it was something like Tinkerbell, right? Tinkerbell had a glow. She flew around, did her own thing.
No.
What if it's a whole colony of like fairies or something? See, the thing about my theory is that you can't prove me wrong.
That's funny. You're right.
So, but I mean, if it was something, natural, like maybe it is like a giant firefly.
But if that firefly was that big, lightning bug was that big, it would have to be as big as like Pepper. It would be bigger than Pepper. It would be bigger than Will's dog even, which is like 14-pound dog almost.
If the luminescence is super duper bright, like we've all seen, like when you've seen like a lightning bug, it's the bottom half of the body that does the glowing.
Yeah.
That's not very big.
No.
So, I mean, realistically, just from my guesstimations from what we've seen, but not counting for distance because I haven't seen it with my own two eyes, you would probably have to have a lightning bug bottom half, I don't know what that's called, that glowed would be at least 16 ounces.
Lower thorax, I don't know.
Or something like that. I mean, who knows? If it is something like that, where it's like a firefly whizzing around out there.
I think it would have to be bigger.
It could be several it could be like a queen and like all her little
minions.
Little worker minions floating
little
around.
drones.
Like a swarm or something?
And that's why they look like they're all wonky out, flying all over the place.
It's kind of strange because they don't seem to fly, like they seem to, from what I've seen and heard, that it's almost like they float.
Yeah.
But with purpose. So what would that be?
That might be her minions carrying her big old butt.
I mean, who knows, man?
We need a break.
So, I have no idea.
But, I don't know. Whatever it is, I want to see it. I think once we actually see it with our own eyes, we might be able to get a better understanding of it.
Yeah.
And, because right now, I see the secondhand footage, and I see the photos, and like the photo I showed Will before he came on the podcast, it doesn't give me enough to make a guess as to what it would be.
Yeah, and the problem you have is it's actually a deep gorge. Tremendous amount of distance between your vantage point and where you see it. So perception is something that really gets sort of skewed.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to size and trying to figure out, what it would be.
Like,
and I don't know of anybody who's like done something like take a drone and light it up and fly it down in there because number one, you're not allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
But
That would be
I don't
cool.
know. It doesn't look like a paper lantern or something that would have the characteristics of like a paper lantern that they light off and like in New Mexico where they
lantern festivals. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look anything like that. So at least from what we've seen, but we haven't seen it with our own eyes. The point is that we're gonna.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're going to see the Brown Mountain Lights, and this is part 1 of our investigatory series.
Count me and Steph in. We'll follow y'all up.
Yeah, and your wife has actually seen it, so we want to get her on the podcast so she can tell us exactly what she's seen, because from what I remember from what she told me, it wasn't in the same location that other people see the Brown Mountain Lights.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And what we actually want is we want something beyond what people say, I seen it in a gorge floating around. If they've seen it in another place, or if they've seen it like in the trees, or
a different angle even.
Yeah. That's something that I think can help sort of figure out.
That makes a lot of sense. If you can put it up against a different background, You know, that'll help you figure out, you know, the distance that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And scale, of course.
Because, like, we went to Wiseman's View. Have you ever been there?
Not yet.
It's like, and we were just talking and just looking down into that thing. It's so vast. I mean, I can't even imagine, like, how big something would be for it to be seen from all these different angles,
yeah,
you know?
No doubt.
And we actually have a little bit of experience with that sort of thing coming from New Mexico, where you see things like that with, you know, gorges and valleys and cliffs and stuff. And so we kind of have an idea of the scale, right? But the problem we have here is that it's trees.
Yeah.
You know, how tall are those trees? That makes a huge difference. Whereas in New Mexico, most of the stuff that you see, when you're looking out and seeing these vast expanses, there's no trees. So you're seeing the rocks, so you know how tall that cliff is.
And something else that I noticed when we were there was we got there middle of the afternoon. We stayed until it started to get dark.
Right.
And I went and took some pictures towards the end of interviewing Daniel, and I looked to my right, which I'm assuming was like south or something, and you could see the humidity rolling in around 5 or 6 p.m. Now, to my left, it was still all clear. The falls were running. You could see all the way down to the falls, and you could see all the trees clearly. But to my right, that's where everything was getting foggy and kind of hard to see. From such a high viewpoint as Wiseman's View, it makes me wonder what's riding on that fog, or that humidity, I should say. So, does the humidity affect it?
I don't know. And that's kind of what we're looking at. So yes, this is the first part of our investigation. We're going to be coming back and doing some more and doing some nighttime trips and that sort of thing. We just need to figure out what equipment to grab, because it really and realistically, I don't think it really matters what you take.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it matters if you're doing night vision or, you know, IR stuff. I don't think it matters. I think the distance is so great that unless you're, you know, within 100 feet or 100 yards,
unless you're NASA,
it's going to be impossible.
Because like NASA recently posted a photo of a volcano going off at the same time as like the Milky Way being in the sky. Yeah, how many millions of dollars is that?
Way more than the $5 that we have.
Yeah, I know, right?
So anyway, this has been episode number 125 of the Brown Mountain Lights, and we do appreciate you tuning in. And so I think that's really about all we have to say about that, except for tune in next time where we actually do more research. And when that's going to happen, I don't know. But so what's coming up with us for the future?
That's a great question. I did want to mention to everybody, we have links in the show notes to this podcast episode, including a couple of books and websites about the Brown Mountain Lights. Upcoming for the CreepGeeks podcast in general is the Spruce Pine Alien Conference and Expo. That's going to be June 14th and 15th, free admission. Be sure to check out our interview on YouTube. It's with Robert from Wonderfy. He basically talks about the reasons and all the great stuff behind the Alien Conference and Expo.
As in why they're actually doing it.
Yeah, so that's going to be on our YouTube, and again, there will be links in the show notes.
Yes. And we also have the video where we did the interview at Wiseman's View. You can certainly check that out. You can follow us on our CreepGeeks page on Facebook, and you can follow us on Instagram at CreepGeeks Pod. We have all sorts of social media places for you to kind of check us out.
And again, you can email us if you have a story and you want to share it, or you want to remain anonymous and give us some tips or some leads for our Weird Wednesday series that we're doing.
Yes.
That email is contact@creepgeeks.com. And again, give us a call on the show. You don't have to give your name if you don't want to, but that phone number is 575-208-4025.
Yes, and if you're looking for something to read about the Brown Mountain Lights, there we do have a link in our show notes. It'll take you to the Brown Mountain Lights, History, Science, and Human Nature, Explain an Appalachian Mystery. Might be something good for Father's Day, so you can kind of check it out, and I'm not sure if it's on Audible or not.
Actually, we do have an Audible book called Through the Brown Mountain Lights by Christy Tillery French. There's a link to that as well.
Yeah.
You can use our Audible link, which is audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for a free 30-day trial, and that gives you an opportunity to check out the book I just mentioned, as well as basically 30 days to try the Audible service.
Yeah, so if you're listening from far and you want to come here and check out the Brown Mountain Lights, you can certainly download that and cruise down the road and listen to your audiobook in style. I guess the style part depends on your own sort of style, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's about it.
Okay.
You got anything else?
Will?
Audiobooks, they read the books to you, right?
Yeah.
You don't-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a podcast, but they start out and they sort of dictate the book to you. Remember back in the olden days, you had the books on tape?
yeah.
It's kind of like that, except that you have more control. So you can use the Audible player on your phone, and the book gets read to you, and you can skip forward. There's all sorts of things you can do. And if you're actually using something like a Kindle or something like that, you can have a little bit even more control. But basically, yeah, from start to finish, you can start a book.
You can do a book at
And
your own pace.
And it remembers where you left off, too. So
Oh,
as you're sort of traveling down the road, kind of like a podcast,
Yeah.
but it's more of it's the book.
Yeah.
And some of these audiobooks are actually read, to you by the artist or the writer of the book, but other ones are actually done by stars, like the ones that have been made into movies. You'll have...
Patrick Stewart's done a few.
Yeah. So
And Leonard Nimoy did a few.
yeah, so there's
Okay.
so there's that. It kind of depends, but
That's all right.
it definitely sort of switches it up especially when you're taking a long trip. Audible and audiobooks that you can listen to, it makes the trip a lot better. And if you don't like a book too, you can trade it out.
Okay.
So, and if you like one and you download it, it's yours forever. So it works out pretty good. 30-day free trial gives you the opportunity to kind of check it out. So it works out pretty good.
And it's under Cheap
Geek.
Geek.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek to get your free 30-day trial.
All righty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
Check that out. I haven't used it yet.
Sweet. All
All
righty.
right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yep.
We will be back with the CreepGeeks Podcast, and be sure to tune in next time. Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.